Her father tried to shame her. The cowboy gave her a new name. My wife. Clara Bennett had always known that her father, Thomas Bennett, could be harsh, but she had never expected him to humiliate her in front of the entire town. It started as a normal evening in Willow Creek, a small town where everyone knew each other and gossip traveled faster than the wind. The town had gathered for the annual Harvest Festival, an event filled with laughter, music, and warm food. Families decorated their homes with hay bales, pumpkins, and golden leaves. Children ran around with painted faces, chasing one another and laughing freely. The air smelled of roasted corn and baked pies. Clara had spent all week helping her mother prepare for the festival. She had made little pumpkin pies, arranged the flowers, and even helped her younger brother Sam craft a small wooden wagon for the parade. She was proud of her efforts and had been looking forward to enjoying the evening. She had dressed in a simple blue dress, the color reminding her of the sky on a calm summer day, and her long brown hair was braided neatly down her back. Everything had been going well until her father decided to make an announcement. Standing on the small wooden stage in the town square, Thomas Bennett raised his hand, calling for silence. People turned their heads politely, and Clara felt a knot form in her stomach.
Her father had a way of making even ordinary moments feel heavy, and she could sense something unpleasant coming.
You know, he began, his voice loud and clear, some of us in this town still believe in respect and proper behavior. He glanced directly at Clara, his eyes narrowing. It's unfortunate when a young lady in her prime makes decisions that, well, disappoint those who raised her. A murmur ran through the crowd. Clara felt her cheeks flush. She had expected criticism at home, maybe a sharp word in private, but not this. Not here, in front of everyone. Thomas continued.
It seems some people need to be reminded that family honor matters more than personal whims.
A young woman must remember her place, or she risks being, well, you all know what I mean. Clara's heart pounded. She wanted to disappear. The ground to open up beneath her feet. The townspeople exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to look away or pretend nothing was happening. She felt as if all the warmth of the festival had evaporated, leaving only cold eyes and whispered judgments. Her mother, standing nearby, looked at her with worry. Clara knew her mother didn't agree with her father's words, but she remained silent, trapped by years of fear and obligation. Clara's younger brother Sam stared at her with wide eyes, unsure what to do. Clara felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had always been a strong girl, or at least she liked to think she was. But this public shaming, made her feel smaller than she had ever felt before. She wanted to scream, to fight back, to tell her father that she would not be humiliated like this, but the words caught in her throat. When the speech ended, Thomas nodded to the crowd as if he had done something noble. The townspeople clapped, some out of politeness, others perhaps out of agreement, though Clara could no longer tell the difference. She felt the weight of judgment pressing down on her from every side. Brass.
Unable to stay, she turned and walked away from the stage. She didn't notice where she was going at first.
She wandered past the rows of booths and laughing children, past the hay bales and glowing lanterns, until the noise of the festival became distant. She found herself near the edge of town, where the streets were quieter, the houses spaced farther apart, and the sky stretched wide and empty above her. She sat on a worn wooden fence, letting her dress brush against the tall grass. Her hands trembled as she tried to steady her breathing. How could her father say such things? How could he turn a night of celebration into a moment of shame? Clara had always loved Willow Creek, with its golden fields and friendly faces. But tonight, it felt suffocating. She felt trapped by the expectations of others, by the harsh words of a man who was supposed to love her. As she sat there lost in thought, she heard the soft sound of hooves on the dirt road behind her. She turned to see a figure approaching, a man on horseback, tall and solid, with the kind of calm presence that seemed to make the world quieter around him. His hat shaded his face, but his eyes were warm and steady, and his gaze met hers with a quiet curiosity.
"Evening," he said in a low, gentle voice.
"You look like you could use some company." Clara blinked, unsure what to say. She had never seen him before. He wore simple clothes, a shirt rolled up at the sleeves and jeans tucked into worn boots. His horse was calm, standing patiently as if it understood the weight of her sorrow. I just needed to get away," Clara said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's been a difficult night." He nodded, understanding without judgment.
I hear that. I'm Jack Callahan. I live just outside town. You can sit with me if you like.
No one will bother you. There was something in his voice that made Clara feel a small spark of hope.
She didn't know this man, yet she felt safe. She nodded and followed him to a small clearing near the edge of the field. He led his horse and offered her a place to sit on a fallen log. For the first time that night, Clara spoke freely. She told him everything, the shame, the way her father's words cut deeper than she thought possible. Jack listened patiently, never interrupting, never offering platitudes. He simply nodded, letting her spill out her fear and pain. "You're not weak," he said finally, his voice quiet but firm. "You're just human, and humans need space when they've been hurt."
No one has the right to make you feel less than you are. Clara looked at him, startled.
No one had ever said that to her, so simply, so sincerely. Her throat tightened, and she swallowed hard, fighting back tears. "It's hard to feel that way when it comes from your own father," she whispered. Jack nodded. "I know. Sometimes the people we love the most hurt us the worst. But that doesn't mean we have to stay trapped in their shadow. You get to choose who you listen to, and who you let control your life." Clara felt a flicker of strength growing inside her. She realized she didn't have to accept the shame her father tried to impose on her. She could step away, find her own path, and reclaim her dignity. As the night grew darker, Jack offered to ride her home. But she shook her head. "I can't go back there. Not yet," she said. "That's fine," he replied. "You don't have to." "Not tonight. There's a place you can go to feel safe, if you want. Just until you're ready to face the world again." Clara hesitated, then nodded slowly. She didn't know why she trusted him, but something in his presence felt right. It wasn't just his strength. It was the calm, steady way he looked at her, the way he seemed to see her without judgment. That night, Clara walked with Jack to his ranch, a few miles outside of town. The air was cool, scented with pine and fresh earth. The stars shone brightly above, far away from the lights and noise of Willow Creek. For the first time in hours, she felt a sense of peace. Breaths. When they arrived, Jack opened the door to a small, simple cabin. It wasn't grand or luxurious, but it was warm and welcoming. A fire burned in the hearth, casting a soft glow across the room. Clara felt a strange sense of belonging, even though she had just met this man.
You can stay here tonight,
Jack said. "Oh, no one will bother you. You'll be safe." Clara nodded, her heart still racing, but a small smile tugged at her lips. For the first time that evening, she felt like she could breathe. She realized that sometimes, when the world turns harsh and unkind, it's the kindness of strangers that can remind you who you truly are. As she settled in by the fire, Clara thought about the festival, about her father, and about the life she wanted to lead. She knew it wouldn't be easy. The road ahead would be full of challenges, and she would have to be brave. But for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that she could stand tall, even in the face of shame. And as she watched the flames dance, she realized that her story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Clara woke the next morning to the soft light of dawn filtering through the small cabin's windows. The warmth of the fire from the previous night had faded, leaving a cozy chill that reminded her she was far from the hustle of Willow Creek. She stretched her arms, feeling the ache in her muscles from sitting tensely the night before. Her mind still replayed her father's words, each syllable sharp and cutting. But here in this quiet space surrounded by the vast fields and the gentle sounds of the ranch, she felt a strange sense of calm. Jack had already left for the morning chores, as she could tell by the distant sound of hooves and the soft clinking of metal tools. Back. She dressed quickly in a simple cotton shirt and jeans that Jack had laid out for her. They were clean and well-worn, like clothes made for hard work, but comfortable in a way that reminded her of freedom. Clara stepped outside and breathed in the fresh air. The smell of dew-soaked grass, earth, and pine trees filled her lungs, a stark contrast to the heavy scent of the town she had left behind. As she walked toward the fence that bordered the fields, she noticed Jack moving among the animals, gentle and deliberate in his actions. He was feeding the horses, checking the fence lines, and murmuring soft words to the animals, as though they understood every syllable. There was something calming about the way he worked, steady, patient, and entirely in his element. Clara felt a small smile tug at her lips. She had expected harshness or indifference from the world, but here everything felt natural, like she had finally stepped into a place where she could breathe. "Morning," Jack called when he noticed her, tipping his hat slightly. "Good morning," she replied, her voice still soft, almost hesitant. She wasn't used to speaking freely without fear of judgment. "Coffee?" he offered, pointing toward the cabin. Clara nodded, grateful for the simple invitation. As she followed him inside, she noticed small details: the worn wooden floors, the neat stack of firewood by the door, a few pictures of landscapes pinned on the walls. Nothing extravagant, but everything spoke of care, hard work, and a sense of home. They sat at a small wooden table, the coffee warm and strong in their hands. Breaths. Jack didn't ask intrusive questions or push her to explain herself. Instead, he offered small talk about the animals, the weather, and the land, allowing Clara to ease into conversation at her own pace. But she realized how long it had been since she had been able to simply exist without fear of criticism. "I like it here," she admitted finally, gazing out the window at the open fields.
"It's peaceful." Jack nodded. "It's not perfect, but it's honest."
"Things are simpler out here. You can hear yourself think." And sometimes that's exactly what a person needs. Clara thought about that. Aspirations. She had spent her whole life trying to meet expectations, her father's, the town's, and even her own. Yet she had never felt truly free. Here, in this quiet corner of the world, she realized she could finally make decisions for herself.
Over the next few days, Clara began helping Jack with chores on the ranch.
At first it was small tasks: collecting eggs from the chicken coop, feeding the animals, mending broken fences. Her hands, used to delicate work in the kitchen, were stiff and calloused from the labor. But she felt a strange pride in her effort. Every task completed, every fence repaired, felt like reclaiming a piece of herself she hadn't known she had lost. Jack watched her without judgment, offering guidance when necessary, but never belittling her for mistakes. He explained how to move the horses gently, how to balance strength with patience, and how to anticipate the animals' needs before they became problems. Clara noticed that he didn't just teach her skills, he taught her confidence. One afternoon, as they rode horses along the edge of the property, Clara felt the wind whip through her hair and the sun warm her face. She laughed freely, the sound mingling with the rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds. For the first time in years, she felt unburdened, alive and capable. "You're a quick learner," Jack said, glancing at her with a faint smile. "Most people take weeks to get comfortable riding out here." Clara laughed, a little breathlessly. "Maybe I just needed the right teacher." Jack tipped his hat, his eyes crinkling at the edges. "Or maybe you just needed a place that lets you try without fear." Days turned into a week, and Clara began to notice changes within herself. The shame her father had inflicted no longer felt like a weight pressing her down constantly. Grasp. Instead, it was something she could look at, acknowledge, and set aside. She realized that freedom didn't mean forgetting the past. It meant refusing to let it control her. At night, she and Jack would sit by the fire, sometimes talking, sometimes simply watching the flames flicker and listening to the quiet hum of the ranch. Clara found herself opening up about her dreams, her fears, and even the moments she had felt trapped by her father's expectations. Jack listened with unwavering patience, never interrupting, never rushing her. It was a rare kind of kindness, one that Clara had seldom experienced, and it began to heal the deep ache inside her. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting the fields in shades of gold and amber, Clara confessed something she hadn't told anyone. "I always thought I had to do what my father wanted or I wasn't worth anything," she said softly, her hands twisting in her lap. "Even now I feel guilty for leaving him, even though I hate how he treated me." Jack reached out, resting a steady hand on hers. "You're not responsible for his choices, Clara." "You're responsible for your own life, and right now you're choosing to be brave." "That's worth more than anything he could ever demand of you." Clara felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't known in years. She realized that courage wasn't about grand gestures or heroic deeds. It was about choosing to stand for yourself, even when it felt impossible. Over the following days, Jack continued teaching her not just ranch work, but life lessons that felt deeply human. He encouraged her to ride alone across the fields, to face challenges with patience, and to find joy in small victories. Clara learned to milk the cows, mend broken tools, and even start the morning fire without help. Each success was a small step in reclaiming her confidence. Each failure, a lesson in perseverance. One afternoon, Clara stumbled upon a wildflower patch near the edge of the property. She bent down to pick a few flowers, their colors bright against the green grass. Jack watched silently from a distance, letting her enjoy the moment. She laughed as she carefully arranged them into a small bouquet, realizing that she could find beauty even after heartbreak. "You're smiling again," Jack said quietly, coming closer.
"I think it suits you."
Clara looked up, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "I think I'm starting to understand what it means to be free," she said.
Jack nodded. Freedom isn't just about being away from judgment. It's about feeling strong enough to live your life the way you choose. And you're getting there, Clara. Every day. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple, Clara realized something remarkable. Her aunt. She had come to Jack's ranch seeking refuge, a temporary escape from humiliation and shame. But what she had found was far more profound, a sense of self-worth, respect, and the possibility of a life lived on her own terms. That night, as they sat by the fire with a pot of stew simmering nearby, Clara felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The fear that had haunted her since her father's words seemed distant, like a shadow that could no longer touch her. She understood that life was unpredictable and that challenges would come, but she also knew that she had the strength to face them. And as she looked at Jack, whose calm presence had become a pillar of stability in her life, she realized that sometimes the people we meet in moments of despair can help us rediscover who we truly are. Jack hadn't just offered her shelter. He had given her
a chance to believe in herself again. That night, Clara slept deeply, no longer burdened by shame or fear. For the first time in her life, she felt hopeful. Hopeful that she could live for herself, make her own choices, and reclaim her dignity. Expressible that she could find strength even when the world seemed against her. And hopeful that perhaps the future held more kindness than she had ever imagined. The days that followed were some of the most peaceful Clara had ever experienced. The sun rose and set over the wide fields, painting the land in golden hues and soft shadows. Clara had grown comfortable with the rhythm of ranch life, feeding the animals, tending the garden, and learning to ride the horses across the rolling hills. Every day she felt a little stronger, a little freer, and a little more like herself. But peace, she soon realized, was fragile.
One morning, as the soft morning mist clung to the grass, Clara noticed a black carriage slowly making its way down the dusty road from Willow Creek.
She felt a familiar knot tighten in her stomach. Her heart skipped a beat as the carriage stopped near the entrance of the ranch. Two men stepped out, their boots crunching on the gravel. They wore the expression of authority, the kind that commanded obedience. Clara recognized them immediately as messengers from her father. Jack approached, calm but alert. "Morning," he said quietly, his eyes scanning the men. "Can I help you?" "We are here on behalf of Thomas Bennett," one of the men said, his voice formal and cold. "He demands that his daughter return to Willow Creek immediately. He insists it is a matter of family honor." Clara's chest tightened. She had feared this day would come, but she had hoped it would be far off. The thought of returning to her father's house, to the judgment, the shame, and the constant reminder that she was not enough made her stomach churn. She wanted to turn and run, to disappear into the fields, but the men were blocking the path.
Everything.
Jack placed himself between Clara and the messengers. "She isn't going anywhere," he said firmly.
Pshh. She's safe here, and she will stay safe. The men exchanged glances, clearly taken aback by his boldness. "Sir, this is not your concern. This is a family matter. We have instructions to ensure she returns at once." Jack shook his head. "No. This is her choice, not anyone else's. She is not a possession to be taken."
Bad.
She has every right to decide where she wants to be. Clara felt a surge of gratitude toward Jack.
His calm, steady presence made her feel as though she could stand tall, even in the face of her father's men. She realized that she had been running not just from shame, but from a lifetime of feeling powerless. Respected him. And now, for the first time, someone was willing to fight for her dignity. One of the men stepped closer, his voice raising.
You have no authority here, Mr.
Brent. Bennett has full rights over his daughter until she is married or legally independent. Jack's eyes narrowed.
Authority? Authority?
Respect is not given by force. You will not touch her or speak to her in a way that diminishes her.
She is not going back to Willow Creek unless she chooses to go herself.
Clara took a deep breath. She could feel her heart racing, but for the first time, fear was mingled with courage. She realized that Jack wasn't just protecting her physically. He was showing her that she had the power to stand up for herself. The men, seeing Jack's unwavering stance, finally relented. "This isn't over," one of them muttered. "He will not forgive this defiance." Clara's hands trembled as they returned to her sides. She felt the weight of the confrontation lift slightly, but the reality of her situation pressed back in. Her father would not stop. He would send more men, write letters, and use every influence he had to pull her back under his control. Her freedom was not something easily won. It had to be defended. Over the next few days, Clara and Jack discussed the situation carefully. They needed a plan, a way to ensure that her father could not manipulate or shame her again. Jack suggested that they make the ranch a safe space, a place where Clara could grow in confidence and independence without fear of interruption. Clara listened intently, absorbing his advice and understanding that her life could truly belong to her, not to the expectations of others. Despite the tension, life on the ranch continued. Clara continued her lessons, learning to ride with greater skill and confidence. She learned how to manage the land, repair fences, and care for the animals. But even in these ordinary tasks, there was an undercurrent of resilience building within her. She realized that strength wasn't just about physical ability. It was about knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it. Then came the day when her father himself appeared. Clara spotted him first, standing at the edge of the fields flanked by 2 more men. His face was stern, his posture rigid, and his eyes carried the same judgment she had known all her life. He had come personally, determined to assert control, and the sight of him made her heart pound with a mixture of fear and defiance. Jack stepped forward, placing himself between Clara and her father. "She will not be taken," he said firmly. "Thomas." Bennett's eyes narrowed. "Jack Callahan, you have no right to interfere in my family matters," he said, his voice sharp. "Clara is my daughter. She belongs to my household and will return immediately." Clara felt the familiar wave of fear threaten to overtake her. But then she remembered Jack's words. The encouragement, the patience, the unwavering belief in her strength. She straightened her shoulders and took a step forward. "No," she said clearly, her voice stronger than she expected. "I am not going back. I am not a possession to be controlled. I choose where I live, who I trust, and who I am. I will not let you shame me again." Her father's face flushed with anger. "This is disgraceful. You will regret this defiance." Jack didn't flinch. "Bobby!" He put a steady hand on Clara's shoulder, a silent message that she was not alone. Then, in a moment that shocked everyone present, he said firmly, "She is mine. My wife." There was silence. Clara's father stared, speechless, while the men accompanying him looked confused. The statement was not about ownership in the cruel sense. It was a declaration of protection. Jack was saying that Clara's dignity and safety were now under his care, and anyone who tried to harm her would have to face him. Brash. Clara felt a strange sense of relief wash over her. The words were bold, even shocking. But they carried an unmistakable promise. She would never be shamed or belittled again. For the first time, she felt truly safe.
Thomas Bennett, unable to argue further, turned sharply and left, his men following silently.
He had underestimated the strength that Clara had found and the loyalty that Jack had to her. As they disappeared into the distance, Clara realized that the battle was not just against her father. It was against a lifetime of doubt, fear, and expectation. Breath. And she had won a victory, not with force, but with courage, and the support of someone who believed in her. After her father left, Clara and Jack stood together in the quiet fields. The tension in the air slowly dissolved, replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant calls of birds. Jack looked at her with a small, reassuring smile. "You did well," he said softly. "You stood for yourself. That's more important than anything else." Clara nodded, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. Jack shook his head. "No. You did it."
I just stood beside you. You're the one who found the courage to say no.
That courage is yours, Clara. and no one can ever take it away. Over the following days, Clara began to rebuild her confidence even further. She explored more of the ranch, rode the horses across longer trails, and started learning the finer skills of ranch life. Each new experience reminded her that the world was bigger than the small, judgmental town she had left behind. She realized that freedom was not just the absence of fear. It was the presence of choice, and she now had the power to make her own decisions. Evenings were spent by the fire where Clara and Jack would talk about everything from simple dreams to deeper fears. Clara began to see life not as a series of limitations, but as a series of possibilities.
She started to imagine a future where she could live fully, pursue her passions, and create a life based on respect, love, and dignity.
And through it all, Jack remained her constant support. He never tried to control her or make decisions for her. Instead, he offered guidance, encouragement, and unwavering belief in her abilities. Clara realized that the true measure of care was not possession, but respect and support. By the time a week had passed since her father's visit, Clara felt stronger than she had ever been. The fear that had once defined her life had been replaced by determination, desperation. She understood that challenges would continue to come, but she was ready to face them with courage. And she knew that, with Jack by her side, she had someone who would protect not just her safety, but her dignity and self-respect. Clara sat on the porch one evening, watching the sun sink behind the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. She felt a quiet sense of triumph, not over her father, but over the fear and doubt that had once held her captive. She realized that freedom, courage, and respect were not gifts given. They were earned, and she had taken them. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Clara felt a deep sense of peace. For the first time, she truly understood that she had the power to shape her own life. She was no longer a girl defined by shame and fear. She was Clara Bennett, a woman of strength, courage, and dignity, ready to face whatever the world might bring. The weeks that followed were a quiet kind of magic for Clara. The sun rose over the fields like a promise, golden light spilling across the horizon, and the air smelled of grass, earth, and freedom. Each day she discovered something new about herself, about the strength she had gained, and about the possibilities that lay ahead. The ranch had become more than a refuge. It had become a place where she could grow, learn, and truly breathe. Jack was always there, not as a master or a teacher, but as a steady presence. He offered guidance without pressure, support without control, and friendship without expectation. Together, they worked the land, tended to the animals, and explored the endless stretches of open fields. Clara found joy in the simple routines, feeding the chickens, gathering eggs, and mending fences, but also in the quiet moments when they paused to watch the sun set behind the distant hills. One afternoon, as they rode along a path lined with wildflowers, Jack stopped his horse and looked at Clara. She had been learning to guide the horses more confidently, and today she rode with a strength and grace she hadn't known she possessed.
"You've changed," Jack said softly, almost to himself. "I can see it in the way you carry yourself."
Strong, steady, free. Clara smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "I think I'm starting to understand what it really means to be me," she admitted. "I've been living for everyone else for so long, but now I feel like I can finally live for myself." Jack nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It's not always easy," he said.
Freedom isn't just about leaving the past behind. It's about learning from it and using it to grow stronger.
You've done that, Clara. You've shown more courage in the past few weeks than most people show in a lifetime. Clara felt a mixture of pride and humility. She knew he was right. Every choice she had made, every step she had taken away from her father's judgment, had been a small act of bravery. And with each act, she had reclaimed a little more of herself. Rest continued peaceful, but not without its moments of challenge. One morning a storm rolled in, dark clouds covering the sky and wind whipping through the fields. Clara and Jack worked quickly to secure the animals and ensure the fences held. Rain began to fall, soaking the earth and drenching them both, but there was a thrill in the chaos. Clara laughed as she struggled to hold on to the reins of her horse, her hair plastered to her face, and Jack laughed with her, a sound full of warmth and joy.
"You're not scared?"
Clara asked, her voice almost lost in the roar of the storm. Desperation. Jack shook his head, gripping the reins firmly. "Scared? Maybe a little. But I've got you. And you've got me. That's enough."
Clara felt a surge of gratitude and comfort. In this moment, she understood what safety really meant.
It wasn't just the absence of danger. It was the presence of someone who cared enough to stand beside you, no matter what. The next day, after the storm had passed and the fields glistened with fresh rain, Clara found herself walking through the garden, tending to the plants and feeling the earth between her fingers. She had planted seeds when she first arrived, unsure if anything would grow, and now tiny sprouts were reaching toward the sunlight. She smiled, realizing that this garden was a reflection of her own life, nurtured, patient, and full of hope. Breaths. Jack came up behind her, brushing rainwater from his hat. "They're growing well," he said, glancing at the sprouts. "Just like me, I guess. Growing stronger every day." Jack smiled, a quiet pride in his eyes. Exactly. As the weeks turned into months, Clara's confidence blossomed even further. She learned to ride across the longest trails without fear, manage the animals without hesitation, and tend the land with skill and care. The work was hard, but it was hers. Each accomplishment reminded her that she was capable, independent, and deserving of respect. Her father never returned personally after the confrontation, but Clara knew he still watched from afar. Occasionally, letters arrived, formal and cold, demanding her return. So she read them once, then placed them aside. They no longer held power over her. She had learned that respect and dignity could not be given or taken by force. They had to be claimed, and she had claimed them. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky in brilliant shades of pink and gold, Clara and Jack sat on the porch, sipping tea and watching the world around them. The air was calm, the animals quiet, and the fields stretched endlessly in every direction. Breath. "You've come a long way," Jack said quietly, breaking the comfortable silence. "I can see it in everything you do."
Clara smiled, a deep, genuine smile.
Psst. "I feel it," she admitted. "I feel like I'm finally living my own life." Jack reached over, taking her hand in his. It was a simple gesture, but it carried a weight of trust, respect, and care. Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest, a reassurance that she was not alone in this journey.
"You know," Jack said softly, "life will always have challenges. But you've proven that you can face them."
Breaking death. "You've proven that you're stronger than anyone ever gave you credit for."
Clara squeezed his hand, feeling a quiet strength in that connection.
Psst. "And I know I wouldn't be here without you," she said. "You didn't just give me shelter. You gave me belief in myself." Jack shook his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. "No, or stop. You gave yourself belief. I just helped you see it." As the weeks passed, Clara continued to thrive. She began to explore new dreams, perhaps opening a small farm stand in town, teaching children about animals, or even writing about her experiences. The possibilities stretched out before her like the endless fields she now called home. She felt empowered to make choices, to take risks, and to create a life that was truly hers. And through it all, Jack remained a constant presence. He wasn't controlling or demanding, he simply offered support, friendship, and a partnership built on trust. Past. Clara realized that love, the kind she had found with him, wasn't about possession or control. It was about respect, understanding, and walking side by side through life's challenges. One morning, as the first light of day painted the fields in gold, Clara realized something remarkable. She had arrived at the ranch seeking refuge from shame and fear. But what she had found was far more profound. She had found strength, independence, and a belief in her own worth. And she had found someone who would stand beside her, not to dictate her life, but to share it with her fully and honestly. As she rode across the fields, the wind whipping through her hair and the sun warming her face, Clara felt a sense of freedom she had never known. Psh! She was no longer defined by her father's harsh words, the town's judgment, or the fear that had once held her captive. She was Clara Bennett, a woman of courage, dignity, and determination. Jack rode beside her, his presence steady and reassuring. She glanced at him, and their eyes met. No words were needed. The bond they shared was clear, built on trust, respect, and a love that had grown from understanding and patience. As the day turned to evening, they returned to the ranch, tired but content. The fire was already burning in the hearth, casting a warm glow across the cabin. They sat together, sharing a quiet meal, and Clara felt a deep sense of peace. The world outside the ranch could be harsh, unfair, and demanding, but inside these walls she had found her place, her voice, and her life. That night, as Clara lay in bed listening to the soft sounds of the animals settling for the night, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. She had faced humiliation, fear, and doubt, yet she had emerged stronger, braver, and more certain of who she was. She had learned that dignity could not be taken from her unless she allowed it, and she had refused to allow it. And as sleep overtook her, Clara felt a quiet joy for it. She had not only reclaimed her life, but she had also discovered the true meaning of freedom, love, and respect. She knew that challenges would continue to come, but she now had the strength, the confidence, and the support to face them. Clara's story was no longer one of shame or fear. It was a story of courage, resilience, and the quiet power of believing in oneself. And with Jack by her side, she knew that the best chapters were still to come. Chapters full of hope, laughter, and the endless possibilities of a life lived on her own terms.